Hey guys, and welcome to my little comp series. I figured to hold you guys over until I finish up the new season of videos, I would take the movie series, the classic monsters, put them all into one big pile for you. This way you can enjoy them in one sit-in. As always, like I've said before, The Creature from the Black Lagoon is my favorite series, so this will be number one. The first two I really liked. Third one you can take or leave it. But hey, either way, enjoy. Hello all and welcome. To start off this series, I'm going to start with one of my favorite monster movies of all time. Besides Godzilla, that is. The Creature from the Black Lagoon. I remember seeing this movie for the first time when I was younger. It was on the Sci-Fi Channel on a Saturday. Any kind of serpent, dinosaur, or monstrosity that came from the sea always kept me entertained and mesmerized. Anyway, let's get ready to scream. The last movie in what was to become known as the Universal Classic Monsters, The Creature from the Black Lagoon, is a 1954 sci-fi horror movie brought to you by Universal International. It was directed by a fella from the same state as me, actually, Connecticut, Jack Arnold. The movie stars Richard Carlson and Richard Denning, who are both well known in the 1950s B monster movie genre. Dennings plays the villain in this picture, the greedy guy who wants all the glory for the next big discovery. Richard Carlson, being a personal favorite of mine, is the hero in this movie. He always ends up playing this nervous kind of scientist that's also wicked smart and always has a plan for any catastrophe. The man always delivers in every role he's ever played, no matter what part it was or how big the production was. A fantastic actor. The leading lady role, and in fact one of the only women in this movie, is played by the late Julia Adams, who is absolutely stunning in this movie. She is also known for helping out put away bad guys on Perry Mason and Murder, She Wrote. She is considered to be one of the original Scream Queens. She is also probably another one of my favorite actors from the 1950s monster movie B genre. She plays a awesome damsel in distress. She really goes all out in this movie. Every time she screams, facial expressions, she is truly a phenomenal actress. Unfortunately, while making this review, she passed away earlier this month. Rest in peace to such an amazing actress. The movie takes place deep in the Amazon, where an archaeological dig discovers a fossilized claw. The lead archaeologist, Carl Meeum, played by Antonio Moreno, heads back north to recruit more to help him find the rest of the fossil. He ends up persuading David Reed, played by Richard Carlson, Kay, played by Julia Adams, and Dr. Thompson, played by Whit Basil, and funding to come from our bad guy, Mark Williams, played by Richard Denning. Just the kind of guy who's really, really eager to get out there and find the rest of this fossil because he knows he'll be famous for it. The newly assembled team returns to the Amazon on a small boat called the Rita, which is captained by a man named Lucas, played by Nestor Piava. Sorry guys, I gotta warn you ahead of time, I'm gonna butcher these names, I apologize. For some reason, he kinda reminds me of Han Solo meets the town drunk. Another great character that really helps add to this movie that already has a great persona. Upon returning to the dig site, they discover the rest of the first team had been killed, but that doesn't seem to faze them too much because they begin digging immediately for the rest of the remains. After a long day of digging, they come up with nothing, so they decide to go deeper into the lagoon to possibly find something. Now deeper in the lagoon, Reed and Williams head to the bottom of the river to collect rock samples to see how old or how long some of these fossils have actually been there. Once they return to the boat, we get the iconic scene where Kay is swimming above and the gill man, or the creature, whichever you prefer, is swimming below her. Almost symmetric. You get the sense of the Beauty and the Beast kind of feel here. The music in this scene is undeniably amazing. The music was composed by 3 different people: Henry Mancini, Hans J. Salter, and Herman Stein. Once the team suspects there's something else roaming around the area, they decide they need to get proof of its existence. Of course, trying to take pictures underwater didn't go so well. So now they need to prove it's real, and there's only one way to do it: by capturing it. After a few failed attempts, later that night, the Gillman finally makes himself known, and this is when they capitalize on capturing him. They knock him out using a drug made by the locals provided by Lucas called retinol, which the first couple times they said it, I couldn't make out what he was saying. I had to actually look it up. They keep the creature in a makeshift container aboard the boat, which doesn't last long. The gill man breaks out, mauls Dr. Thompson, and jumps back overboard. At this point in the game, they realize it's better to bail take off, and come back later to try to capture the creature. Williams is against this, of course, but Lucas seems to persuade him that it's time to leave. Unfortunately for the crew of the Rita, there is only one way in or out of the Black Lagoon, and the Gillman has that blocked. Reed has an idea on how to move the tree. Like I said, he's always got a plan. Once again, though, Williams tries to intervene, but Reed shows him this is his turf. While in the water trying to move the tree, the Gillman shows back up, and William again sees his chance to try to capture him. This time, though, the creature has him, drags him to the bottom, and twists and turns him all around the riverbed, just like an alligator or crocodile would. Reed enters the fight with a harpoon gun to try to scare the monster off, which he is able to do, but he is unable to save his friend. After losing Williams, they are going to attempt one more try at freedom. Reed, again the genius who's always got a plan, rigs the harpoon gun to spray out the rotenol. This time, while in the water, he sprays enough in the creature's face to make him turn and run, or so they think. The Gillman sneaks back aboard the boat, grabs Kay, and takes her back to his lair. Reed refills the spray gun and goes after her to save Kay. The monster's cave is pretty spooky looking. Dark, dank, filled with razor-sharp rocks, and of course, smoke. Hey, if you're gonna have a lair, you gotta have smoke in there somewhere. After a desperate battle, right when the Gillman looks like he's about to backbreak Reed out of his mind, up shows Lucas and Mia, and they take the monster down like a firing squad. They unload up to 5 or 6 shots into the monster's chest until Richard says,
No more, let him go.
It's as if Richards almost feels bad for the creature, even after all they've gone through. The creature stumbles back to the water's edge with the surviving party watching him. The last glimpse we have of the Gillman in this picture is we see him try to swim off as he slowly drifts and seems to die. Or does he? And that was the creature from the Black Lagoon. I know I said this already, but I gotta stress it again, is by far one of my most favorite monster movies of all time. Thank you all for watching. See you next time for more gills, chills, and thrills. This was part 2 to the Creature from the Black Lagoon series, the last of the original Universal Classic monsters. This one was titled The Revenge of the Creature. Jack Arnold returns to direct this 1955 sci-fi horror gem. It was released 1 year after the original on July 22nd and was also made in 3D, just like the first one. We are once again in the Amazon aboard the Rita, captained by Lucas, played by Nestor Piava. He is the only returning cast member from the first movie, besides Rico Browning, who plays the Gillman in the water. The scientists this time around that are after the Gillman are George Johnson, played by Robert B. Williams, and Joe Hayes, played by John Broomfield. They have heard of the tale of the monster and want to capture it now, and bring it back to be studied. And we all know how that ends. So, not sure if this is actually the same Gillman or a new one. I'm going to assume it's the same one because like many of the Universal monsters, they just return somehow. Unlike the previous trip that was after fossils, this time they are ready to capture the Gillman.
There he is.
Aha! John Egger, our good buddy from Tarantula, plays Professor Clayt Ferguson. He studies the psychology of animals and stuff like that. And look who he's got working for him. None other than Clint Eastwood, who was also rumored to have a part in Tarantula. Clayt gets word that they captured the creature and heads to Florida to see it for himself.
Where are you going?
To ask the dean for a leave of absence. What else?
The Gillman is in a coma when they bring him into the tank, and this is where they're going to keep him. Joe tries to wake him up. He's trying to get water flowing into his gills by walking him around the tank.
You couldn't pay me enough to do that.
One of the onlookers is Helen Dobson, played by Laurie Nelson. She's going to be our female lead monster interest for this one. She's an ichthyologist here to study the Gillman. Another person to mention is Lou the reporter.
Look, Joe, you can't do this to me. Why, I've got every man, woman, and child in the civilized world waiting to meet the Gillman.
That's Dave Wilcock. He was in a ton of TV and movies back in the late 30s all the way through the 80s. For our purpose, he was John's buddy with the helicopter from It Came from Outer Space.
You're crazy.
He's dead serious.
Didn't you even hear it? I didn't hear nothing when you kept banging on my door.
Watch it up there. He's starting to move.
Well, the plan worked a little too well.
Get the net ready.
Too dead.
They transfer the Gillman to a bigger, more secure tank. They also chain him to the bottom this time so he can't get out. Once Clayt gets to the town, he moves in for the kill on Helen.
Miss Dobson, what are you doing for dinner tonight?
Fun fact about this movie, John Egger's wife has an extra part in this film.
And what are you doing for dinner tonight?
And everyone is trying for her today.
Join us, Joe, if you want to.
No, thanks. I'll give the professor his chance.
They run some tests on the Gillman to see how his brain works and reacts to certain things. The Gill Man seems to also have the hots for Helen. Now the fish wants to too.
So what we discover is the Gill Man is pretty much damn near human. Again.
Also, Clay is already on his second try. He just doesn't want to quit with her. So there's a good 30-35 minutes of tests, so let's just fast forward past all that. Ah! The monster killing Joe. Guess he never got his chance to go on his date with Helen.
No thanks.
Guess that means the only competition now for Clay is the Gill Man.
Not sure if he's dead, but I'll count it.
Another quick fact about this film is that the Gill Man was actually played by two people this time. Rico Browning, who was the creature in the water, and Tom Hennessy played the Gill Man on land. Both fellows actually have smaller roles throughout the film. Where they are exactly, I'm not sure, so if you know where they are, please put them down in the comments below. Ah, the good old newspaper headline montage. One thing a lot of movies are missing today. So we get more filler here, which kind of annoys me. It's a lot of Clayton and Helen out on a boat, just enjoying the day, which I probably don't need to mention. I know you're trying to keep your mind off things, but your buddy just died. One thing I do need to point out here, which was also in the first movie, is the Beauty and the Beast kind of thing, where she's swimming up top and the monster's down below. But it just doesn't have the same effect as the original. Plus, if they know there was an aquatic monster on the loose, why would you go swimming in a river near to where it escaped? Well, on the fourth date, the Gill Man comes in and sweeps Helen right off her feet. Maybe he was just actually checking out the band. The Gill Man grabs Helen and takes her out to sea.
Is she all right? She's alive.
A massive manhunt, or a Gill Man hunt, begins. They find Helen on the beach while the Gill Man takes a dip to get some air back in his gills. Or water, however you want to look at it. Clay does his best to try to get the Gill Man to drop Helen. Which kind of works out, but then he gets the firing squad. And we see him die, or again, like the first movie, fade away to the bottom. This movie has a bit of a goofy overtone, and it's not as dark as the original. The filler in this one kind of sucks with all the aquarium scenes. But once the Gill Man escapes, it does get better. Also, they use the creature theme, as I call it, way too much. This would pretty much become stock movie monster footage themes. It's even the theme for Godzilla vs. King Kong. John Egger is awesome as always. As far as sequels go, it's not as good as the first movie, but it is definitely not horrible, and I definitely recommend it. Well guys, that's it for this one. Coming up next, we have the sequel to the sequel. Part 3s in series can be pretty rough. Well, not all actually. Friday the 13th Part 3 was pretty good. Return of the Jedi is not bad. Or is that Part 6 now? Because if that's also the case, Episode 3 really wasn't that bad either. Rocky 3 was pretty good. Captain America Civil War was good. I mean, if you're only going by the Captain America movies, same with Thor Ragnarok. Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 Dream Warriors was pretty good. But that's probably just because I'm a huge Dokken fan. George Lynch rules. Anyway, what I'm getting at is, The Creature Walks Among Us is the third and final Gill Man movie in the classic Universal monster era. The Creature from the Black Lagoon was also considered to be the last monster in the lineup of the Universal Classic Monster movies. This was released on April 26, 1956, not even a full year after The Revenge of the Creature was released. And as I need to point out, he is not that big, nor does he attack the Golden Gate Bridge. Anyway, Jack Arnold did not return to direct this one. John Sherwood did. So let's see if 3 holds up here. Already, this film starts a little different than 1 and 2. Normally we start with the Amazon. Here we are in California, getting ready for an expedition to find the creature. This is, right to left, Rex Reason as Dr. Tom Morgan, Leigh Snowden as Marcy Barton, Maurice Manson as Dr. Borg, and George Palmer as Jed Grant. The man who set this whole thing up in funding the expedition is Dr. Barton, played by Jeff Morrow, one of our favorite fellows on this show.
Look here, General. What kind of an infantile jackass do you take me for?
Not possible that a man of your scientific curiosity wouldn't want to find out who I am.
Also on board, we have Dr. Johnson, played by James Rowley. The reason Dr. Barton wants to do this trip is to catch the Gill Man and transform him into a human. Why? No clue, and it sounds dumb. But here they go. The creature in the water, once again, is played by Rico Browning, who has played the Gill Man 3 times now in all 3 movies. And then on land, it's Don Megawan. Yeah, I probably butchered that guy's name. So they nearly burn the Gill Man to death before they capture him.
Drug knocked him out, all right. If it hadn't, the fire would have. These are third-degree burns. We better get the boat over here. Bring the boat!
So now they have to do the surgery to save him. The surgery turns out to be a success, so all the doctors have a big party to celebrate. And it's during this party we learn 2 things. Dr. Barton is extremely jealous and kind of psychotic, and thinks his wife is pretty much, fooling around behind his back with every man on Earth. And that the Gill Man is learning to be human because he's becoming one technically after all these surgeries, and tries to escape, but nearly drowns because he doesn't have his gills anymore and tries to breathe underwater as if he did.
He's going to jump. He'll die in the water. He'll use his lungs and he'll drown.
But thanks to the doctors, he's brought back up.
And when he's afraid, he tries to kill anything near him, animal or human.
So Dr. Barton decides to bring him back to his place and see if he can adapt him to society. Barton's place is right outside San Francisco, where he has a huge cage set up to hold the beast. And all the doctors come to stay with him, too. Another side note, the music is the same as it was in the first and second movie. Nothing changed there. Nothing really happens here except Barton is pretty much sure his wife is banging everyone in the house.
I'm not going to have you parading around here in front of a gang of men, do you hear me?
And that we learn the creature still has its animal instincts. Barton definitely goes off the deep end with his obsession and control over his wife. He decides to kick Grant out of the house.
What's bothering you, Doc? Your wife?
Get out.
Oh, it must be your wife, Doc.
Shut up and get out.
Okay. But it could have been any guy she'd get friendly with.
Dr. Barton unfortunately takes it one step further and beats Grant to death. So Barton tries to dump Grant's body in the creature's cage.
Not cool! Totally lame!
But the creature says, nope, I am not getting blamed for this shit. The creature escapes and hightails it after Barton. And once he gets a hold of him,
Oh my God.
the movie ends with the creature standing on top of the beach looking over the ocean, and then he walks towards it. The end. Is it the end of the creature? Does he possibly somehow adapt to swim underwater without his gills? Do his gills grow back? We never really know. What we do know is this movie was okay. Rex Reason does a great job of being a skeptical doctor about turning the monster into a human, and Jeff Morrow plays a fantastic psychotic husband. The supporting characters are okay, kind of forgetful. The creature itself, after the surgeries, I don't really like. I like my Gill Man to have gills and look like an actual monster. This guy just looks like a giant pro wrestler. I understand the point of the story, but he just doesn't look good. So is this a good third movie? Well, if we're going by Alien 3, yeah, it's just okay, and not as good as 1 and 2. But that doesn't take away from his status as one of the most famous monsters in movie land.